for sure, time is a scarce resource. And when it comes to the role of a consortium lead, just know that you'll be working longer than any other principal investigator in the project because you have additional roles. And therefore, for me, sometimes I find myself working extra hours, especially if I have examinations. Like I mentioned, I'm the examination officer for the department, and at the same time, I also lecture. So that means in a period where it's we have examinations going on, I'm 100% committed to the examination process. And therefore, if I have to do something like for 2 hours for the project, for the role of the consortium lead, I may decide to extend for 2 hours in the evening to finalize something for the project. So, and that's why I say sometimes it calls for sacrifice. Sometimes you have to sacrifice your time. And again, also for other principal investigators, I find that sometimes we meet outside the normal working hours for the day. The normal working hour for the day is from 8 to 5. And most of our meetings, if you check our records, we do our meetings immediately after 5. So from 5 to 6 p.m. East African time. And that means that you have to be ready to work outside the normal working hours for the day. And this is especially if you have different projects. This is not only the project I have. I've been working as a PI, not as a consortium lead, as a PI in other projects. And that means it needs a lot of, responsibility and also discipline in time management so that you don't lose time anywhere to be able to manage this. Yeah, thank you for the question on budgeting. Actually, budgeting was the most problematic part for us to come up as a component for the proposal. And I was lucky that I had one of the PI who is more experienced in budget making. And we worked so closely with him. He's from Ghana, our PI in Ghana. And budgeting is not easy because what you do, you have to know the market rate. For example, if you are proposing to organize a conference, you must be having background information on what it takes to organize a conference, on what it takes to organize for a workshop. And therefore, you need to go back to know the components that are required. You need a venue, you need transport for the participants, you need lunch, you need communication. Probably you also need to engage additional personnel for that particular event to work well, because you as an individual, you cannot be running everything up and down. So you must have that right, that this is what I need. So what is the market rate for hiring a conference for 50 people? What is the market rate for facilitating transportation for people, coming to this conference, maybe on road, because this is mainly for the city, for this number of kilometers. So you must take some time to do your homework to know what are the market rates for various facilities that you require for organizing the activities.
Thanks. I think that conveys a very important message, which is running a consortium requires also some very technical skills, but the consortium lead doesn't necessarily have all of those. So I think it's important to recognize when there are partners in the consortium, among the consortium members, who have something technical to contribute to the coordination. As you said, you had a colleague who was very experienced in budgeting, and you could rely on his or her help to do it. Now, my original question was about how you budgeted for the coordination costs. Because I think this is something that perhaps teams that are joining forces are wondering about. How did you actually budget your time as a coordinator on top of your time as a PI in the project?
Yes, I did. Francisco, thank you. Yes, I did budget for additional roles. And what I did is that we looked at the budget, because initially what we had is that we really knew that this is the amount of money that we'll be having for this project. And from that money, we tried to come up with a budget that is not that big, is not that blatant budget for that matter. And we're trying to make sure that we fix the most important items for the project. And coming back to your question now, the role of the consortium, it requires additional funding because when it comes to communication, you'll be the one organizing for Zoom meetings. You'll be the one organizing. Sometimes you need something urgent and you have to call. So in the budget of the consortium lead, we should have that factored in on top of what each of the PI. Remember, you in the first place, you are part of you are PI in the project, but on top of that, you'll be having additional roles. So you have to know exactly, not exactly, but you have to estimate what do you require. If we have to meet maybe once in a month or twice in a month, what is required? We have the Zoom license, we have calling, the airtime, and some other requirement for you as a consortium lead, and you factor that on top of what the PI is receiving in the project. So that is basically what I did. Yes, thank you, Francisco. The reason why I'm laughing is because we have one of the most difficult things in a project, and this is about funding. So how Belmont Forum works is that it has agreement with different funding agencies, and whenever we have a PI coming from the country where that funding agency is located, he receives as a given amount of money that comes to the project. So you find that in my consortium, we have different funding agencies bringing the money to the project, which is supposed to be housed at Kenyatta University where I work. And because I'm the consortium lead, it's supposed to come to Kenyatta University. So one interesting phenomena is where one of the funding was not directed to Kenyatta University. And remember, when you presenting the budget, you presented the overhead. And the overheads, they are calculated based on the policy of the institution receiving the money. So Kenyatta University charges 15% of all the grants that come to the university as overheads. And then when this money didn't come to Kenyatta University, it was directed to one of the PIs in the university where he works. And that complicated the matrix of our budget, because the country, the policy of that particular country and that specific university was charging 26%, 26% compared to 15% that Kenyatta University charges. So we were to incur a very huge deficit in our budget, and we were getting a lot of money from that funding agency. So things were a bit complicated, and we had to invite all the institutions to come on a table. I had to do that because initially I was just expecting to communicate to the funding agency, but it never worked. I tried to go to the university where the money was sent, it was not working. And then I had to now come to my university and tell them, now, this is the situation. The project is going on, but we are not receiving money any soon because of these complications. Kindly come and let us find a solution. And after months of debates and discussions and processes, finally, we came to a consensus that all the money that was lost because of the differences in the percentages charged to the grant, it was supposed to be refunded by the funding agency, meaning that the funding agency was supposed to caution us from losing any money. But by the end of the day, the institution that had housed the money was to deduct the 26%. So they deducted the 26%, and the funding agency had to compensate us. And it was a very complicated process. And up to now, as we speak, we don't have that money, but the process now is very clear, and it is moving on. And in the near future, we'll be getting that money without losing any cent. That was one of the most challenging moments in my role as a consortium lead. The institution that is supporting you, first of all, financial accounting is also a complicated exercise, especially for people who are not trained to do financial reporting, because they are done in a specified way, and there is a language of financial reporting, auditing, etc. So one of the greatest support that you need to be sure of before you become a consortium lead is whether the institution that you are affiliated to will support you in, preparing financial reports. And the preparation of financial reports simply relies on the expenditure that you've made in the project, and you submit all the documentations, the receipts, what we may call the invoices, the receipts, and so forth. You forward everything to the institution, and they prepare a financial budget for a financial report for you, which now they submit on your behalf to the funding agency, and that makes your work easier. Another thing is that the institution has also to support you with general operations. Like, there should be an office where you can just go knock the doors and you say, hey, the money that I needed that was to be transferred to this and this PI has not gone through. Can you kindly talk to the bank? What is the issue? They need to intervene if there is a problem with money transfer. The other thing is that they should also avail, general facilities like printing. You should be allowed to print. You should be allowed to use the university facilities, or the institutional. I'm not talking from the university perspective. The institutional facilities to coordinate the project as the consortium lead. Because without that, then you may realize that it becomes very difficult. And in fact, the overheads that are charged on any grant, they are meant to do that. There must be an officer who is there to help you. The stationery and printing, photocopy, etc., they need to be availed. And if possible, I don't know whether this is possible for all institutions because space is scarce. Like for me, Kenyatta University gave me a physical office. This office where I'm sitting is not the project's office. This is my job office. There is a physical office in the university where I can go and do the work of the project specifically without mixing the project work and the employer's work. So those are just some of the things that I find they are really important. And why are they important? Because even in for that particular physical office, if you have research assistants, you can meet there, you can talk, and if they want to work for the project, they can also work from there. So the institution need to provide internet, desk, you know, a nice room with the furniture and other facilities to enable you work for the project.
Thanks for that. Did you agree on this kind of services before? Did you know before you know, accepting to be the consortium lead, this is the kind of support that your university was able to give you? Because I imagine maybe for somebody who's thinking about taking up this role for the first time, they might wonder, how do I make sure all of this is possible? Now, it sounds like Kenyatta University really has a system in place to support projects. I imagine there are very many projects coming to Kenyatta University, and probably the university values these international funding. So, you know, they probably do provide services in exchange of that, of those overheads. Now, can you tell us just quickly whether you knew before accepting the role that this was the level of support you get?
Yes, having worked at Kenyatta University for the last more than 9 years now, I knew if you have a project, the university can facilitate on those various aspects. And therefore, when I was getting to this position, I knew that when we get the project, then the university will support, because even my senior in the university, I know quite a number of them that have been facilitated in a similar way. So I was very confident about that. So, but speaking to those people who may not have an institution like where I am, and they will be receiving the funding for your project, and they are also charging the overheads, then if you don't know about what support they give, it should be very clear, because that overhead charged to your grant is supposed to give you some services. And then if you don't know about the institution, you have to sit down with the management and know exactly what kind of support they will be willing to give you in case you won the grant and they deduct the overheads to administer the funds for your project. So by now, the participants, they understand the difference between a financial report, which is done by my institution on the behalf of the consortium, and then there is the technical reporting that we have to do as the consortium. And of course, I have to lead the process. Leading the process doesn't mean that I write everything what is required on that report. So what we do, like now, we have a deadline of June 15th to do our annual financial report. And what I do is to go to the online platform and gather the information, what needs to be reported about, and then I share with my team members, with the consortium members. We have some meetings, and we go through the form, and we come up with a draft, and then we start perfecting that report according to to the requirements of that particular report. So my work mainly is to drive the process and to ensure that if, for example, I can just give an example, if the reporting requires us to list the number of stakeholders that are party to our project to date, and we had done it, for example, last year, there is always that question to the PIs. Do you have additional stakeholders that have come on board to be party to the project in the city that you are representing? And that means that I cannot just go and say these are the stakeholders. I have to go back to the team members and gather that information. So there are obvious things like the name of the consortium, the acronym, the PIs. Those are just basic information required for the reporting. But the technical part is more a teamwork kind of work. And finally, we put that information and we upload it online and we send it to the to Belmont Forum.